What is going on, Nuggets Nation NBA fans? My name is Tom Leuthner. Welcome back to Nuggets Today, presented by Fan Arch. We do have some topics to cover and get into, and I just want to start off this episode by backpacking off of what I was talking about a little bit last episode with Nikola Jokic in Eurobasket losing to Turkey. And I've had some conversations within the community speaking about Nikola Jokic and, how he looks right now when it comes to his physical shape. And I know that we talked about it, on the channel briefly in the offseason about him being, not in shape when it comes to his body shape rather than his physical shape, I guess, rather than stamina-wise. So it's something that we spoke about in the community. And like I said, I think that we talked about Jokic being maybe looking a step slower, which I might agree with a little bit. I think that he looks a little bit slower than what he has looked like in the last couple of years. And that obviously is going to come with age, regardless of how old you are. But the one thing I've noticed is that, in my opinion, this looks like the biggest when it comes to muscle and just, physical presence that I think he's ever looked throughout his career. And I mean, I don't know why, but I was watching Serbia-Turkey yesterday, and just seeing how big of a physical specimen he looked like yesterday really made me a little intrigued for this season to see how Denver uses him. I think that watching him cut to the basket and dunk on somebody, I mean, I jumped up and started screaming, I'm going to be honest, but it's something that I would love to see Jokic do this season rather than play more of a fadeaway, under the basket type shot where he's fading away on layups or hook shots, and maybe a more physical down low presence with the additions of players on the Nuggets roster and the additional shot creators and, scorers. So if Jokic is able to play, maybe not the top of the key facilitating role, but a down low monstrous role, I think would be massive, especially against teams like the Rockets who have that center depth. Teams like the Thunder who just have big man depth in general with Chet and Hartenstein there. Teams like the Clippers with Brook Lopez and Ivica Zubac. I think that Jokic being in that kind of situation with Denver would really be great. Now, again, I'm not saying he's out of shape. I just think this is the biggest I think he's ever looked. Maybe I'm wrong, and it's just because of the players he's playing against, and he's not playing against many NBA players. Obviously, guys like KP who are, thinner bodies, and even Şengün's a little bit smaller when it comes to his physical appearance, so maybe that could be it. But it's just something about watching Jokic be such a big body who was able to run down the lane, dunk on somebody like it wasn't anybody's business. And that's something that we don't see a lot of Jokic doing. So maybe he fades away from taking more threes this year and being a facilitator and focuses on his scoring. Obviously, down low in the post, he's still going to be able to facilitate, and he's done that anyway. But I would love to see Jokic in more of a post role, mid-post, spin off and then finishing at the rim or dishing out to the three-point line for a guy like Cam, guys like Tim Hardaway, guys like Bruce, guys like Jamal Strother even. So that's just what I want to talk about with Jokic. Again, unfortunate they lost to It's unfortunate they lost to Turkey, but at the same time, it's nice to see Jokic completely dominating and playing that brand of basketball. And maybe we see more of that when it comes to the NBA this upcoming year. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is, something I was listening to a podcast, and I was just scrolling through and coincidentally landed on one of the Locked On podcasts, and that was the Locked On Thunder podcast. And they were speaking about their rankings and, where they have everybody, not just the Western Conference, but just full power rankings. And I was pretty interested with what they had to say because I think that I fully agree with it. And it's sort of something I spoke about the last episode. They obviously had the Thunder at 1 because I think that regardless of whatever they think, their boss probably has to tell them to say that. I'm in a little bit of a different boat where I have the freedom to say I don't think Denver's going to be number 1. And I don't see how, if you're truly a basketball fan and you're not biased, you could say that the Thunder are number 1. As a Nuggets fan, lifelong Nuggets fan, somebody who loves the Nuggets, watches the Nuggets, obviously covers the Nuggets, I would not say that Denver's at number 1 right now, just right now. Maybe that changes throughout the first month or two of the season, or week or two of the season, but at this current moment, I think you guys all know my standpoint. I think that the Nuggets are number 2, which Locked On Thunder agreed with me, and I think that the Houston Rockets are number 1. Overall, I think that they have the best team in the NBA right now. I think that they're a team that are maybe on paper not the best roster in the NBA, but when you look at the lineups that they can create and the gameplay that they could, the way they could play, I think that they're a clear number 1. They added the one thing that they've been missing in a scoring in Kevin Durant. They added full defensive bench units. I'm sorry for the noise in the back. Full defensive bench units in Okogie and Dorian Finney-Smith. and Capella, Steve Adams. They have probably the most center depth in the NBA. That's true, maybe behind the Pistons if they do keep everybody. So I think that my ranking would be 1, the Rockets rather, 2, the Nuggets, and then 3, probably the Thunder. I think that the Nuggets are a better roster now than the Thunder. I think the one thing they lacked last year was health and depth, and I think that they got both those now, and they took the Thunder to Game 7 last year. So I will say that my 2 is the Nuggets, my 1 is the Thunder, and they agreed that the Rockets are over the Nuggets, which I sort of find interesting. But in the playoffs, they were saying that they fear the Nuggets more than the Rockets. Now, talking about the depth and the moves that Denver had made, I want to bring up Cam Johnson here right now. And Cam is a guy that another YouTube video I was listening to. I was listening to S. Ross's videos. He does his rankings and does his hot takes and listens to people's views on Twitter or X. And somebody, Nuggets fan, posted and said that they think that Cam Johnson will be Nikola Jokic's first ever All-Star teammate. And I can't say I disagree. I think that, there's potential for Cam Johnson to be that guy. I think that he has the highest IQ of any player that Jokic has ever played with. And I think that's one of the most dangerous things about Denver's team this year is the fact that they have 2 guys with that kind of IQ and Cam Johnson and Jokic who can truly just pick apart defenses. I think that Cam is not scared to shoot the ball, which is a massive, W in Denver's favor. I think that he is going to be a guy who's going to play good defense for Denver. He's going to maybe handle the ball more. We'll see a role where he takes that number 2 ball handling spot from Jamal and Jokic could play a different brand of basketball. And like I said, if Jokic is playing down low in the post and you have Cam Johnson in the corner behind him, you can't step up on Jokic and double team him because he's just going to dish it behind. And Cam Johnson could have the opportunity to average around 23 points if Jamal isn't going to be the main shot creator, which obviously we're probably going to see. But I think that Cam may be in that 19-point role, right around maybe where MPJ was. But I hope that maybe he's in that 23-point role and he is an all-star for Denver this year. Now, my overall thoughts right now, for just Denver in general is I think that we're in a perfect position as a team, right? And another thing that we continue to talk about in the community is the fact that at the deadline, they may look to acquire one more player depending on what they're lacking. And, the guy that's his name is out there right now in the trade market would be Julian Strawther. Now, that's not coming from the organization. That's just in the community. And I'm really big on Strawther. I don't want Denver to get rid of him. I don't want Denver to shop him. I think that he's a guy who should remain in the organization strictly because he is that good of a player, in my opinion. He's a guy who they can develop. And if you are able to bring in, another top tier player and keep him on the bench, I think it would be massive. I would. I don't want to see anybody traded unless Denver needs to, unless they're the 4 or 5 seed. But I think Denver has the opportunity to make a push towards that 1 seed again in the Western Conference. We could see another Nikola Jokic MVP season if he does lead them to the 1st seed. And I think that, like I've said multiple times, this is the best Denver Nuggets team I have seen maybe my entire lifetime. Now, I'm younger. Only 25, so you could obviously say there's the AI Melo team. There was the team with, I guess, Chauncey, Melo, but in my opinion, this is just the most. I think that Jokic is the best player in the history of the organization. I think that's fair to say. I think that Melo's up there, David Thompson's up there, but I think that this is the best team around the best player in the organization that we may have ever seen, and I am super excited to see what this team can really do in the regular season. Anyway, that is all I got for you guys this episode. I will try to have another episode out for you guys tomorrow. If you want me to cover anything, let me know down below. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I will catch you guys tomorrow.